Production was concentrated on a small number of designs, but each was turned out by the thousand. By the end of the second year of the war, Soviet production had outstripped Germany's. Morozov, Koshkin, Kucherenko, designers of a revolutionary new tank. It was the T-34, and it was a masterpiece, the best tank produced in the war by either side. It was very fast, heavily armored, powerfully gunned. In 1940, only 115 T-34s existed. 2 years later, 15,500 had been delivered to the Red Army. The Soviets had to achieve a second instant industrial revolution, first finding new sources of iron and other ores in the east, and untapped coal fields to feed the furnaces. As battle succeeded battle, workers who had been sent to the east were now needed for the Red Army. Russia's reserves of manpower, vast as they were being stretched to the limit. The battle line needed men, but so did the assembly lines. The gap was filled by those who had already earned a few years of rest. The old taught the young and remembered their own skills. Now their textbooks were the lathes, the drills, the presses that turned out the armaments for their fathers at the front. This boy's father was killed in action. One boy recalled, "I wasn't very tall, so they had to give me something to stand on so I could run the machine. I would get everything ready before I started on my shift, so I wouldn't have to waste a minute." His shift lasted 12 hours. But what mattered was not size, it was enthusiasm and love. One boy sent a note with his product. "This is the 10,000th machine gun I've assembled. I'm proud of it." The work required skill and sometimes more strength than the children thought they had. Somehow they found it. The majority of the workers were women. They too learned unfamiliar skills and unwelcome sorrows. A woman might put in as many as 14 hours of back-breaking work at the plant, then go home to cook and care for her children and elderly relatives. And this, knowing only that her husband was at the front, far to the west. The work demanded the utmost of body and mind. No Russian woman had ever operated a blast furnace before. It called for strength, great skill, expert judgment. Voyna was foreman of a blast furnace.
Вначале я даже не знала, что люблю ли я, по сознанию ли я пришла работать. А вот когда мы выплавили первую плавку, сделали это специальный чугун, так вы знаете, я на всю жизнь полюбила эту вторую домну, и даже до сих пор.
I really grew to love that work. At first, I didn't think about likes or dislikes, but I think subconsciously I wanted to do it. Then I made my first fusion. It was a special kind of pig iron, and you know, it made me take that number 2 blast furnace to my heart forever. Even today, I just love it. I talked to her like a friend. I'd say, there, my dear furnace. You've got to know, my dear, how much we need that metal.
Shirts, greatcoats, mittens, boots, gear of all kinds for the fighting men came out of the eastern plants by the tens of millions. Some of the workers cared for their families and tended their machines at the same time. Everywhere, in every profession, every trade, skilled and unskilled, the women took over. There was a popular song they all knew. It spoke of waiting, of loneliness, of hope, and of love. It was called The Blue Kerchief.
С радостной вестью приду, снова дорогу к милой порогу я без ошибки найду. И вновь весной под знакомой ветвистой сосной милая встречи, нежные речи нам возвратятся с тобой. Встречи, нежные речи нам возвратятся с тобой.
Half the farmlands of Russia had passed into Nazi hands. Brought to the east, the tractors broke new ground in the Urals in Central Asia. Much of the labor, hard as it was, fell to the women. On occasion, transportation of their produce took exotic forms. As if their sacrifice were not enough already, the women surrendered their valuables to the war effort. Throughout the East, the heirlooms were handed to the state. Russian, Kazakh, Uzbek, Ukrainian, Kyrgyz women gave their adornments and their treasures to finance the war. Even their wedding bands that linked them to their husbands, who they might never see again. The gold, the silver, the precious stones amounted to many tons. They bought tanks, guns, warplanes. Some gave money, their savings, and they stood in line to hand it over. The total came to 16 billion rubles. What people donated could not replace the great oil refineries of the Caucasus, the mines of the Ukraine, the shipyards of the Baltic and the Black Sea, and the huge power plants of the Dnieper. But it could help to build anew. Even those who had already served